All right. Let's bring it home where we are. Oh, there I'm at. Hello. This is a good, really, this is a good mix. Let me take the headphones off so I can hear myself think here. Alrighty. Yeah, this is Aronmix, the latest, what's the date? I think that was the 18th of last month, August. The date he made that mix. Like 2 days later, he handed it off to me. Hello, welcome. I'm. This is you're at the channel of Schumann Resonances with Verde. I'm your host, Verde Arbusto. So I have already done the part A to this, and as I put up there on the my notes here, the script. I had hit the stop button instead of the pause when I was trying to get organized. And pretty much the editing that I do is on the fly with the pause button. I don't have to insert anything or take it out later. It's just like that's it. That's my low-tech editing method. And I use that liberally as I'm able to. And sometimes I hit stop or there's been times, I'll be honest, where I forgot where I was and didn't know how far back that I had not they'll pause the mic and there'll be no audio, so I have no idea how far back I wasn't speaking. So that I do that as well. I have to hit the stop and I'll just watch the end of it, and so I know where to pick up. So in this case, having watched the end of it, the video, the last one, so I know where I was. That was the music. I was just about to hit the music. So I hit the music. That's done. That's good Aronmix. The whatever mood something Moodena. He doesn't know what any of these songs are. He just goes by how they sound. So like. I've asked him who the artists are. He doesn't know. No one knows. No, the artists, none of the DJs playing stuff. They sort of know, but they don't know the name of the remix, whatever. If you like name that tune with the the drum beat, a lot of times they probably could. Anyway, not to get sidetracked on this. So I'm going to pick up right where I left off. I had gone through a session of light language, my original tones from home to help guide us and let us get the truth of what's happening. Now, in the meantime, I need to say this. In the meantime of me having started this, Stefan Burns put out a video on his channel. Okay, so I'm going to make a link of that. And he's great at making short videos that get to the point. I'll just say this. And he's got graphs and colorful, fun stuff on his. And a lot of what he talks about with the Schumann resonances, I think he's got it. I think he really nails down the truth and the veracity and the technical stuff of what's happening. Remember, it's very complex, right? This guy's got a degree. And he's got it mostly, you know what I'm saying? And there's a few fine finessing things, like with the modes he was talking about. Like, sort of got it. He uses the phrase Q factor, and I always use the phrase quality because the quality relates to the magnetic capture and not the Q factor of the atmosphere itself, right? So he's not wrong. It's just, it's technically not correct what the Q on here, the Q of the graphs is. All right, so, but it's got this complicated stuff, right? This is very, very, very complicated shit. So the fact that he's got that nuance of a thing not on is, to me, kind of proof that he's got a lot more on than not on. I think that's fair to say. So, and plus he's got on his channel, he's got a lot of interesting stuff about other stuff as well. It's not Schumann resonances. They did run one recently about earthing. Earthing and not birthing. Just so we're clear on that. and he explains what earthing is. And Bradley's always talked about that. So in fact, Bradley was over at made a comment about the anomaly. I think it's like a 5-minute or 6-minute video he did about the anomaly, and I would suggest, if you haven't seen it now, and go to the link, watch it, then come back here, and we'll chit chat about it, because it is an interesting video. But he basically says, in a different way than I do, that it's not some crazy, wacky theory of some metaphysical explanation. It's there's technical reasons for it that aren't some timeline shifting, whatever, right? So he does these short videos that are fairly watchable. They're entertaining, if you're into this techno geek kind of stuff. He's got sort of a deadpan delivery, right? But mercifully it's short. And I say that with a big smile and a hug in my heart. They're worth watching, right? They're educational, right? And he keeps it to the point, right? And so I like the videos. I watch them. I go over there. I comment, So go over there and watch his videos. Yeah, because I do. I watch them. I recommend them, right? So since I've been, the part that I was at the end of the other video is, I posed the question, if you believe it's malfeasance and you believe it's manipulation, the question is, what do you think they're hiding? Right? So that's what I want to, right, in the back, right, if you're of that sort, if you're asking, if you believe and you're making that assumption that you believe they're hiding something, then you have to give us the reason what they're hiding and even why, right? So that's sort of started out. But I want to say this, that also as Facebook has been hiding my posts, it's like, well, they don't need a person. They could have a bot, theoretically, that's there doing this, right? So, but still, why? What do you think it is the reason of what they're, like spikes? It's all right. It's spiking. So what? Right? I'm still baffled by that most basic of question, that even if it is spiking, what to you do you think that means actually and symbolically, and what would it mean to the Russian, the technical institute, that they would create a bot for that, right? And I guess maybe you would have to show it use somewhere else as well. Okay, I don't know, but I'm left with the question that, sure, okay, they did that. Why? For what purposes? And don't give me Ascension, because Ascension is like with a contract, and it's like blah, blah, blah. That's blah, blah, blah rhetoric to me, right? And the point that I make is, why do they need to hide it or confound it when you don't know what you're looking at anyway, right? So these are the premises that, the questions that I make going into it. Because all of science starts with questions and questioning, right? That's what I was told. Whatever your research paper is, it starts with a question, not too general, not too narrow, and in a subject and a field in which you are able to study and that you want to. All right, so I'm, as a scientist, I am not a scientist. I don't claim to be scientific, but I am a technical person. I'm a technician. I fix stuff. I look at how stuff works properly, and I try and figure out how to get it to stay working properly, theoretically. And, that's how I look at everything in my life, is I try and figure out how to get it to work, right? I'm a Mr. Fixer. Hopefully I'm not a Mr. Broke It, except for me being able to fix it uh, um, afterwards. All right, so anyway, so I do question these things. I question myself, and so I question what I know, and so I know what I remember what I've read in a lot of cases, and I'm still wondering, still looking, still curious. All right, so um, I don't I don't discount that there may not be a bot. I'm pretty sure there's not a person doing that, right? Uh, there may be some bot that is hot, right? However, but you still got to prove that. You got to show that. You have to establish that that's an actual real thing, right? You know, like yeah, like that's an imaginary bot is not a technical, you know, that's not a technical enough explanation of how, you know what I'm saying? If it is a bot, that's great. Give me the algorithm, give me something, give me, right? Something other than, oh, I'm sure it is. Right? And that's part of the problem that I have with the the labeling it a blackout, right, is the what I'm going to call the politicization of the science, of taking it from observational into an, I don't know, a personal philosophical realm, if you will, right? With these theories like that, that they're either they're first that they're hiding the data, uh, or that they're hiding, they're manipulating it, or that it's a timeline shift, right? I mean that you can't prove. You're not literally not able to prove that because I'm going to say I don't know how it would work that you could show that, right? I mean, other than some mysterious glitch in the uh the the data there, right? So I'm questioning a lot of this stuff on principle that if depending on what it is, you know, like there's a lot of myth and technical jargon or gobbledygook or I don't know what, but it's not um not correct. Let's just say my guides, as my guides are here directing me in this, they're suggesting to me that this stuff is not correct. That most of the stuff that's signed up with the agenda of Ascensionism is just not, you know, like the shifting timeline showing up, you know, proving, you know, having these mysterious outages as proving of some metaphysical belief is not proper, not correct, not good to hold on to. Right? There's a substitution there of oh, I can't even. I've talked about this before. I don't even really have words for this. This is why I don't like going off script, because even though I can tell you this, it's like I don't really have the words to explain some of this without it being, I don't know, offensive, maybe I think, or it being misleading or whatever. Um, and I have talked about this before as well. That there's a corrupting of the technology of the tech that is happening as we speak, as we're going forward. You know, as we're moving into the new, it's being transitioned or transmogrified or stolen or misappropriated or whatever, to hide behind it in the time of transition. So you think, oh yeah, this is good. Well, the thing behind it is scurrying, is what's some crap from the last, the last age, the last epic that we're leaving, we're trying to get out of. It's scurrying behind a lot of this stuff, and a lot of it's scurried behind this rock of, underneath the rock of Ascensionism, right? And so that's part of what it is uncovering what's true knowledge, truly, spiritual, if you will. Right? I mean, it's sort of what the ascension stuff is. If that's the bend you're on, yes. Let's talk about that, and let's discuss why this isn't a spiritual thing that's happening, that it's showing, that the graph's showing, right? Let's talk about how it's not the spiritual thing that you believe it is, right? Because maybe the spiritual thing that you believe it is isn't able to be shown, and maybe on top of that, or even worse or more important than that, is the spiritual belief that you have and the shifting timelines and all of that. Maybe that is a red herring that needs to be addressed, right? So, as I've said before, as I said earlier in the other one, when I do these spectrogram and graphic anomalies, it gives me a chance to talk about these ideas that people have, these metaphysical, spiritual, whatever ideas, philosophical ideas that people have, that they've thrown into the mix, that they've attached, and that they have tossed into the mix, tossed into the ring, and they have attached to the Schumann resonances via these graphs. The Russian ones specifically, right? So that's why, even though I might not otherwise wanted to have, I wind up having to address a lot of this stuff, and these are some of the things, these spiritual myths that are being sprouted in the new age. And so it's important for people to understand them going forward, of what they have and why you need to know what's what. All right, so if I haven't bored you off by now, let's move on with the text. All right, so I'll read a little, I'll play some more music mix, and we'll get through this. So it's not that I don't necessarily object to that being called these voids, when I'm calling a data void. I don't necessarily object to the phrase blackout, right? I mean, that's not offensive to me necessarily. However, there's all this other connotation that comes with it that it just can't. That you just can't take. All of what I just said, that introduction that I just kind of gave, hopefully, you can understand why it's really important not to use the phrase blackout without understanding that it's a trip you up type of word, type of phrase, that's there to, direct to your head. And, right, believe this as you want, right? It's up to you. Right? Feel free to believe it as you see fit. All right. So, do whatever you want, right? But if you use blackout and you're one of those that are keeping up this kind of narrative of one of these bizarre theories of the shifting timeline or whatever, there's a half dozen of them I could rattle off right off the top of my head. I'm not going to, but of what that is, and one of those is the malfeasance, that someone or something, even if it's a data bot, right? Like the fact checker, right? The Facebook fact checker type. All right, like tell me how that works, right? I'm a tech, so I'm fascinated by that. If you have it as a theory of that's something that exists and it's real, give me the technical breakdown of that, right? Give me the schematics. Let me read the technical stuff on that, All right. If you can't do that, you can't claim it. I just humbly submit it to you. Right? Because, as Occam says, you go with this most simple explanation first, and there's more simple explanations before that you would have to consider. Right? Just simply put. Right? So, part of like what you have to understand is that because this is coming from the server, right? You don't know at what point, right? Really, this is a complex data chain, and this is something else that needs to be talked about. This is a complex data chain of getting information from the antennas to the spectrogram and then online, right? After all of that, right? Because it has to go to the spectrogram machine first, and then after that, that's all that is done and correct, then it goes online, right? So because there's a lot of data movement, you don't, a person, I certainly don't know where in the process that the data stopped, right? You don't know, right? This is the problem. And a real world, if you're linking this to some real world event or meditation group, you still got to provide me documentation, right? I'm the technical guy. This is the science side. So no matter what claims a person makes, whatever flake claims you might care to make, that's fine. Show me the documentation that goes with that. You have to, right? I'm sorry, you need to. Otherwise, you're pushing the agenda of Ascensionism, right? There's a lot of agenda. They're just trying to transfer like it's a different currency, a social currency of some type, right? The wokeism, the woke agenda, right? They have a lot of words and rhetoric. That's one of the things they use is the language, the words, the rhetoric, with a pseudoscientific backing to it, right? Like the frequency is one of those words. And a lot of the stuff they attach to the graphs of the Schumann resonances are the pseudo-scientific claims of Ascensionism. The Schumannites, Schumannism, Ascensionism, are using, the graphs in these technical readings and something to prove to you conclusively some whack job theory of insert your rhetorical claim here, right? That the world peace and it knocked it off the scale or whatever. You gotta make, with those extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So you need to show that conclusively to me, right? I say whatever you want, but on my channels, in my YouTube group, right? Where I'm admin, where I'm mod, I let them know, right? You don't run that theory, that pseudo-scientific meta blada blase on me, because I'm grounded in science, and I also have a very deep grounding in the metaphysical and spiritual and, the occult, the dark side. I admit that, I have a pulse on the dark side. I freely admit that. And it calls me. So, as my guides, use, feel free to, one of my guides is death as your advisor, as a career advisor, as a life advisor, right? Death is always over your left shoulder, 6 feet, right? It's a good advisor to use that, the words of death, you will, which is not God. God is not death, right? There is a principle that's in charge of life and one that's in charge of death, and sometimes both intertwined. Anyway, so I just want to make it a point. That's what I put here, as about getting your information online. That at some point in the process, you don't know where in the process, the signal fell out, right? And that's what it is. The sky didn't fall out. The Schumann resonances didn't fall out. They didn't stop, right? These natural forces that were going did not stop. but the detecting machines did for some reason. And you don't know why. We don't know why. I don't know why. I would love to know why. When I'm able to visit the other side and look at everything from a true perspective, and I can, I no longer have this body, and I can be a true spirit or a true soul, and I can go over and visit, right? Then I'll be able to see. And then I'll come back and somehow give you the true information of what's happening. However, until then, that's why I'm doing this, specifically this, and why I made it a big deal to, use my original language to call help and open our minds, because I don't know everything, but I am questioning this, and I do want to know. I do legitimately want to know, because it's one of those things that gets the most misinformation, I believe, one of the things that gets the most misinformation attached to it, right? It's a malfunction in the machinery that gets a bunch of stuff attached to it that it shouldn't ought, right? And so I don't believe that that is a fair, technically accurate, scientifically proper way to look at this, right? In part because I'm already sort of disillusioned by, disenfranchised by the whole ascension agenda, ascensionism as a operating program, right? There's not even a program, right? Bunch of words that people throw together, and there doesn't seem to be principles behind it, blah 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 blah. So that's one of the things that I stress first and foremost is about the technical aspects of this before getting into any more of the ramblings, more of my ramblings, is the reminder that it's coming through the technical means. And if you were there yourself and you saw firsthand what was happening, you'd have a much different view of these, data breaches. I don't even want to call it that, because you get a wrong, incorrect, wrong, jaded, politicized view of what that is, what these are. I don't believe they're breaches. And so that's why I call them a void, right? A void of knowledge, void of understanding of what they are. It's not a void of the Schumann resonances, for goodness sakes, right? So that's why I'm talking about this first, and it's sort of one of the kind of, how do I say this? Some words are, trying to figure out the right words to say here are tough, and even though I have thought about this stuff, it's difficult to vocalize it in words so that I can so that the average person can understand this, and I'm clear about what I'm saying. And now I forgot what I was going to say. But the I try to be the best representative for the technical and the scientific side of things, right? But because there's been such an attachment with the ascension stuff of this, that even if I didn't want to, I can't. I can't disregard it. I have to address it, and that puts it square within the framework of what I look at, of this ascensionist agenda relative to the technical data. All right, so this is kind of tough to put out there. I do my best to say what I need to so it's understandable by the widest range of people. However, a lot of these concepts are very difficult to word and voice and vocalize into English, and they're not just even challenging themselves, but they're just above and beyond what I can even voice for myself, and let alone for you guys. All right, but Ascensionism versus the Aquarian Age, right? Where I talk about there's a difference between the New Age and the Aquarian Age, right? The New Age is like the rock under which a lot of these vermin are hiding, and hiding behind rhetoric and language and linguistics and the trick of the tongue and being clever. They're taken under the wing of Lucifer and Ahriman both, and that's fine. It is what it is. Whatever, that's fine. Not to be, judgmental. Let me get on with the narrative. So there is the spirituality, the New Age spirituality of Ascensionism, the pseudo spirituality, pseudo scientific homogenization, I don't even know what the word is. I'm making up something now of the two, the spirituality, this enlightened, long waited for spirituality and scientific and whatever in Ascensionism. And beware, because it may just be the rhetoric, right, of the New Age. The Aquarian Age is a whole different thing. It actually is the real deal. We're in it now, right? We're in it now. But a lot of people that wouldn't have otherwise made the cut into the true Aquarian protocol, right? They're the woke, right? That's sort of what this is. They're like, this is one of the last great vestiges of the old age that's trying to survive, is through this crap, and it's bringing a lot of shit to the surface, for lack of a better way to put it. Bring a lot of shit to the surface, which it should, and it's needed to be dealt with for a long time. And the woke is showing itself for the joke that it is, if you will, right? And so there's this kind of false flag, false wave that has to move through and clear out the damage that won't go away, but it's hiding, right? Hiding behind a lot of the mask, the script, right? It's sort of script that's being run for y'all. And it's important to understand that. And so the Ascensionism is part of that, this pseudoscience, frequency, using the technical information, the magnetometers, throwing out the KP index graphs, all of that. The pretty pictures, the graphs that you don't understand what they are, right? Using that as some verification, validation, verification, authentication that something's actually genuinely happening, when the people using it, they're mismatching, they're mix-matching their metaphors, they're throwing a bunch of shit together that doesn't really go together, certainly not the post that they're talking about, but, like the KP index is doing one thing and the Schumann resonances is doing another, and then we're looking at the photon count and all of this. It's this alleged spiritual post that is showing you these, the sun flaring and all of these space weather events, right? And so this is more of the agenda that's thrown out to you to get you to, to basically conditioned into a lockstep where you're unable to get out of that mindset, this, La La Land, the Disney version of what's happening. You can't get out of that mindset, and you're not able to look at, what the graphs properly are showing you, right? And the unfortunate event that these graphs have been attached to, have been pinned to, the graphs have been pinned to, like, boom, ascension as a a spiritual movement for the human race because we're improving and whatever, which may or may not actually be happening worldwide. In actual fact, in actual fact, in actual fact of itself, in actual fact of what you're saying, it is because you've got to prove what you're saying it is, right? And in actual and in a fact of it being automatic, as being shown by the Schumann resonances. So there's 3, maybe 4 levels of you need to show happening first before you can use the graphs to back your claim. Right? So that's part of what the script of the agenda of Ascensionism. And that's why I make the claim fairly regularly that there is a definite push to fake the graph readings to you, get you conditioned to thinking in a certain manner. And not the technical graphs and not the technical explanation, because they don't give you the 3 panels of dependencies that go along with the spectrogram. In the business, in this business of Ascensionism, there's a vested interest in conditioning your mind into a set way of thinking regarding the graphical information. Okay. We were talking about that. Right? I've been talking about that. I've been giving these information to you to be leery of, to be wary of, to be suspicious of. Okay. The so-called blackouts of buffering, which happens on a regular on a regular basis. Okay. So if they're providing this to you as a public service for their charter, because it's a public technical institution, right? They're providing this for you. You need to show conclusively your theory that they're manipulating the data for some educational reason. First and foremost, right? Before you can start to prove, if you will, anything further for the whole worldwide, I humbly submit to you, you need to prove to your board of directors, more locally, more local authority, you need to show to your board of directors why you're doing that, right? Why they are intentionally removing data, right? And if you're insisting it's because the KGB is there, right? You got to prove that. You got to prove that, right? Like, I'm humbly submitting that to you. That if you're saying that, I don't even care with the why that they're doing it. Like, you got to physically show it happening. Among other things, you got a bunch of proof. Like, as if this were a court of law. Like, I'll just throw that out to you. Just, toss down the gauntlet. Just as if you had to prove this to a judge who's actually trained in this shit. You need to prove malfeasance on their part of the KGB and why. Like, what are they gaining from that? Right? They're a public institution, right? That's what I'm humbly submitting to you. Right? So it's not that data doesn't exist there, right? We don't know without more information from them. We don't know, and you can't just naturally assume that, presume that they're hiding something from us without more of your theory, without more of that theory, without more to this, right? You can't just make these claims without more to it, right? It's a hit and run, you need to have supporting evidence, right? It's not up for me to disprove your stupid claim. It's up for you to validate with factual evidence this as a valid claim, so I don't call it a stupid claim, right? If you believe it has merit, that's fine. Please, right? Show me this. That no one has yet, right? It's only been people with even loosely circumstantial evidence that are on these, long-winded posts and discussions and videos about something funny business related to society as proven by these graphs here and the data anomalies, blah, blah, blah. And so I am, like I said, I am making the claim as I have that this is online, and you got to remember that first and foremost, right? That, you have to first disprove that it was some error with the server or something wrong with the data storage system, or the fact that data had been filtered out in the course of this because it was outside of one of the papers, at least one of the papers I've read, was talking about the filtered signal and the out of bounds. Right? That's one of the things I talked about early on of the filtering of these signals, of them being outside of the range, what's happening being outside of the range of what the antenna can pick up. Right? And so that's something that I've stated from the very beginning. All right, so let's see what we got. Oh, yeah, this one. All right, so I'm going to pause right here. Actually, right here. So we'll pick up there when I'm going to play some music. You got anything? All right. So I'm going to play some music, Aronmix. Time for smoke if you got them, right? And I think what I will do is I will increase the font size of this, maybe, so us old people can see it better. Yeah, we're at the 45-minute classroom length break, smoke break, meeting break point. So, let's have a great time. Pack them if you got them, then smoke it if you want to have a drink, have a cold one. I have a coffee, and let's do this shit. In honor of all of our friends who've gone before us on the other side, and the people that we love we now miss because they're over there on the other side. Let's just we'll play this song, and we'll remember those who passed on and have a libation in their honor. So, on that cheery note, on that really, really cheery note, I'm back. Let's come on down off of the dance floor now. Let's pause this. Okay, it's good. All right, we're going to pause this time definitely. I'm back. I'm live. The red light is now solid, and the numbers are clacking away. It's almost an hour. I am just barely getting into the main material here. Onward and upward. I think I have to work at the bar, my second, third, I don't know, job, whatever it is, helping behind the bar, the concrete. But that's after we close at 1 in the morning. It's 8 p.m. now. So I think I'm gonna lay down for maybe a couple hours and then head down there in a little bit and help them out. That's the plan anyway. Me and my exciting life. All right, so that's just me behind the scenes. The grid. In fact, this is actually a shirt I'm wearing from. You can't really see it in the thing, but it's a T-shirt I'm wearing from one of the events we did from when I was working there as the cleaning guy and the bar back. So I don't do the bar back. I don't do the cleaning anymore, but I do help with the building and doing concrete and helping do other stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so on the cheery note, the greater. All right, so let me just say this: the claims I'm making here, these are my opinions, these are my postulations, except where I can, provide fact or whatever from someone, some place, some source, right? So I'll just say that. And I don't know exactly what happened here, right? And so I'm not claiming to know exactly what it was, but what I am saying is that from my experience, there's a high degree of probability that it's a data buffering issue, because we're talking about that information going online, we're talking about it going through a number of steps, and somewhere in there, like some signals just get lost, right? So this is my theory for the first most, likely culprit for that, right? The data voids, right? There's a chain of components from where it's collected to when it gets to you, okay? You, me and you, right up here. I'm doing a video on it from, from where it originally, after it was originally collected from Tomsk, Russia. Right? The only ones who really, really, truly know who happened are, the people that know what happened are the technicians at Tomsk. They may be making reports on this. I haven't seen any reports that they make on this. And this is not saying that anyone at Tomsk, any of them, have manipulated the data. If you believe it's malfeasance, then you need to prove it conclusively. So there's a lot of people out there who use these as clickbaits. Oh my God, the world is falling down. And that's fine that they do that. Whatever, right, that's on them. However, you might want to ask how they are coming up with this, with their stories. How are they coming up with their theories, right? What you want to, these are just questions to ask them. What practical experience do you have in reading these things? How do you know, right? This is one of the first things that you got to ask these commentators, right? How do you know? And don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to put them on there. If you watch my channel, you have a master's degree in Schumann resonances and you've learned some stuff. Oh my God, right? Go over there, challenge them, right? If you've been following me for long enough, you know that a lot of these folks out there who do these readings, they might as well do tarot card readings for all the correctness that they're giving you of the process of what's happening. So what's your technical background? And what's the name? Stefan, he has a degree, a technical kind of geophysics, geo engine, whatever degree. So he has a high degree of understanding of how the Schumann resonances work because of his actual training and technical, his schooling, his actual schooling, right? So he gets a big applause and notice from me for being spot on in a lot of what he says about the Schumann resonances, right? And keeping it to the point and succinct, right? Just he gets a lot of credit for that. So that he gives his right, he gives his credentials of how and why he knows what he knows, right? The other ones, they don't do that. I've never seen them once. And I don't want to put anyone out in there on the spot, but, some of them have great content otherwise, and just because they give you the Schumann resonances and they don't know what it is, I don't want to, speak badly of them, but there are some that use this as clickbait. And those are the ones more that I address this to. Mr. MBB 333, he gives you the Schumann resonances, shows them to you, and he, just shows you the Schumann, and he gives you a little blurb about it, and sometimes it kind of hits near the mark and whatever, and all right, he does space, weather, and general. So he can be somewhat excused. But the other people, other channels, there's a few of them. One in particular is awful and horrible, explaining what is happening here, and they're just downright bad information or misinformation, or just no. I'm not going to say their names. They don't, but they're not explaining to you. They don't, of these ones that I'm saying that are so bad, you don't see where they're giving you credit or background information of how they're training, how they are trained in this, or where they're, how are you getting your information? What do you, huh? What's your training? Huh? And I've explained this all over the place in my videos about my background in all electronics and all of this, and I've given examples of what I've done and blah, blah, blah. I'm very forthcoming and very open about that this is along the lines of what I was otherwise doing. Close, not the atmospheric electromagnetics, but radio. I just transitioned from, broadcast radio to atmospheric radio, and that's how I got that's how I got the position. That's how I got the tenure, like the most relevant experience, right? Hands-on, real-life relative experience. That's me. 40 plus years in the trade, right? Okay. But other people, right? Are you just doing this YouTube as a clickbait channel? Like, I don't know. I'm asking. I don't ask anymore. I don't care anymore. But that's the first thing you should ask, right? Don't depend on me. Like, you ask for yourself, what it is. Since it's a technical graph, what kind of, training in this do you have? Right? Occam's razor tells us to go with a more simple explanation, right? So, what's more likely? Okay, so what's more likely? That the data is being systematically manipulated or removed by some bot, okay, or some mysterious entity, some unnamed, unknowable entity that no one's been able to prove anywhere. No one that I've seen, right? It may exist out there, but no one that I have seen has been able to give anything close to conclusive evidence as to what is happening, what has happened, and why they would remove anything, right? Who's doing it, how much money they spent on any of that, right? You follow the money trail. There's been no money trail from there, right? That's the best way to put it. Or is it, which I maintain, is it simply a buffering issue which comes with streaming data bottlenecked at one of their servers? I'm proposing that is a much more likely scenario, that it is a buffering issue coming from streaming data. That's, again, they're doing this, they're streaming it, right? It's not some, video production, but this is a production. It's been produced by the, by the university, and you have to remember that it's streaming as it live as we speak, right? Same thing with Kumyania, the earthquake report, and the same thing with a lot of these, like any of these scientific graphs and meters and whatever, they're streaming live. And when they cut out, right, then they get your attention. But you forget that it's streaming and there's a process with the servers and all of this that goes in. It's a very complex process that goes into getting you the signal on, the Tomsk website or spaceweather.com or, disclosurenews.it or whatever, wherever, right? So that's one of the things that's important to remember, that at some point in here, there is a likely failure point in all of this that can happen, right? When things are going good, they're going good and you don't think about it. But then, boom, something happens. Oh, what happened? And so then all sorts of wackadoo theories get ascribed and get put onto the Schumann resonances. And then people are like, disprove it. Disprove my whack job theory, Of course it's, because Tomsk isn't coming out right and saying what this is in English, let me just pause this here. Tomsk does publish reports on their findings. They go to symposiums. Their people are represented. You got to know that. Their people are represented out there in the professional community. But it's only because you're not a professional in that community that you don't have access. I'm not a professional in that community either, nor do I have access as well. And the people that do want you to pay them for that access. Tomsk is providing this free, right? That's fine, right? But their people go out there to support themselves and the university through doing symposiums and doing traveling tours where they explain the data, right? You just got to understand that. But it's in Russian. A lot of it is in Russian, and it's not translated into English unless you pay a service. And I don't know, right? The abstracts are available, and I can kind of, sort of, but I don't see that many of them because they're listed through the symposium and not through Tomsk, right? You got to know who was at the symposium to be able to look up these things that way. So you got to understand that I don't have a database access to these. Otherwise, I'd be able to find some of this information, right? Just understand that. But even with that understanding, you pay the money, you get through the gateway, the research gate, as it were. You still got to figure out the Russian version on this, right? They're not all, they give a lot of talks over in Europe. They don't come to America. If the symposium wasn't in America somewhere, they're not likely to translate into English. And Germany, right? They give tours all over Russia, and they tour Germany, and they tour the Ukraine, and it's Stockholm. That's another place, right? So you got to understand that there is more information out there from Tomsk available on these. However, I don't read or write Russian, Cyrillic, and nor do I read or write German, right? That was another problem I had. And then there's the ones that are in French, which I also am not fluent in reading thereof. Sort of, kind of, but not enough, nearly enough, right? So these are part of the problems in the research. I just want you to know that, and they do that because it's part of what, it's an academic thing, right? I just humbly submit that to you, right? So that's part of what it is if you're going to make the claims, you got to support them, and you have to go with a more likely scenario of the smaller, the the problem, the more likely problem, which is the smaller of them, the more simple, I will say, and rather than you're going to say some mysterious entity which you don't know, you got to have, that's an extraordinary claim for which you need to have extraordinary evidence. In the case of it being a bottleneck by the server, that's a much easier issue to, and then the data didn't make it and it got purged. Right? They had to do a memory clear. They had to do a reboot of whatever was in the system, a hard reboot, a cold restart of everything, and they lost data. That would be my first, the memory is not that big of a memory in the, the little minor equipment that they're using. And right, that would be my first guess of what would happen there. A cold reset. A hard reset, cold reboot. They turn it off, you wait 30 seconds, turn it back on. So that would be my first, bottlenecked at that type of a issue from the servers, right? The servers aren't behaving, they're not acting well, and you're they're not retaining data. These blackout, quote unquote blackout, I'm keeping that in quotes because that's not my phrase for that. I use data voids. So the blackout, when you see these, the clickbait claims come with a built-in conditioning that some magical mystical person or a bot, right? A fact-checking bot even. The Schumann fact-checking fact wrecker bot is sitting there all day watching the charts to hiding and then to delete the data delete. The absurdity of this, as far as I'm concerned, in my personal doohickey on this, is the absurdity of this is that most of the people reading this, who are saying this, making these claims of some manipulated blase and blase B, that they don't know how to read it under normal circumstances, right? And I make the claim, right? That to counter, right? It's a question, right? But here's my theory, right? Question tossed back at you, not to answer your question, but to answer your theory. Why spend money and resources on subtracting or removing data when they don't need to? Why would they go through any trouble to remove data when they don't need to? That's what I'm asking. Right? They don't need to do any of that. Why would they give any thought, any effort, any work, any engineering behind a bot even to do that? Fact-checking bot. What do you think they remove it? Right? Why manipulate the data when they don't need to? You don't know what you're reading anyway, so why bother? Right? I mean, to mess with you, right? That's really what it boils down to. Not to deceive you, but to mess with you, to F with you. Right? Simply put, why manipulate anything when they don't have to? If you're calling this manipulated data or some other nonsense, then you need to prove it. You got to prove that this over my head right here, right? Where am I? Oh, sorry. That this right here. Hold on. Okay. So you got to prove conclusively, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that this area right here, right? This all data void here, from A to B, right, that all of this, if you're calling this a data void, if you're calling this a blackout, meaning that it's malfeasance on their part, meaning that the observatory removed something, or it's a bot removed it, or whatever. If you're making this claim, then you need to prove it conclusively, document something, right? Something more than your theory of synchronicity. Right? That's a lot of what I have heard people, say in this, of the why, to prove why they believe that. It's some synchronicity of some type, or just it's largely me. That's my experience, right? And I am always open to hearing what the data is, what the research is, because I don't know, right? My first guess is the most likely, the most simplest. Go with the most simple answer, right? I just told you that. I just told you what the simplest is, right? And once again, the flip side of that is the question: why go through any more than that? They don't even need to. Why go through more effort to do anything to the data when they don't need to? So that's the flip side of that question. Or that's the question, the flip side of that statement, whatever. All right. So again, you need to prove it. The burden of proof is on you, the person saying this, with your theory. The burden of proof is on you, that something is manipulating the data. If you're saying it's due to solar activity, it's still the same, right? So regardless of whatever the root cause of this, the causation of it is, you're saying it's solar, they don't want us to see. Well, you know it's a solar thing. You obviously know it is. Right? So, what does that mean? Oh, yeah, so that's how I know that they're hiding it. Well, they're not hiding it very well if you know that it is. They have all these detecting and censoring and meter devices and cameras and infrareds and all of that to show us. And you have to remember that they know, apparently what you don't know, that the ionosphere makes a bigger difference in what's happening than the solar influence, because it's that kind of cushion, that like a drum head, the inside of the membrane, right, of what's protecting us from the solar activity, right? So they know that, right? So the burden of proof is on you, who are making these accusations and trying to, push forth these theories that of manipulated data. You gotta provide proof, even if it's solar stuff, right? Who is actually manipulating this? Whether it's a bot, right? One of the fact-checking bots. I'm game for whatever it is. What? Who specifically, right? I need to know this. Who exactly is sitting there all day long, watching the posts just in case, right? When they have shown that, and you got to remember that these are not showing you rising Schumann resonances. This is excess atmospheric voltage floating around in the atmosphere, right? This isn't the cresting, rising Schumann resonances, right? And so people get this messed up all the time, and because you are misunderstood about what they are, that doesn't mean that Tomsk is hiding it in support of some theory, against what you're saying. Like a timeline shift or whatever. They're not hiding data to, they didn't want to show that, when you're using that data void to prove it's a timeline shift. Hopefully you follow along with me. So it boils down to you to have your shit together, have your ducks in a row, have your paperwork all, your I's dotted, your T's crossed, no run-on sentences, use a semicolon in there if you need be. Better maybe make 2 sentences if it need be. I don't know. But get your shit together when you come with this theory and have everything lined up to support what you're saying. At least for me, to me, with me. Right? This is not the place to spread rumors. Not my channel. Not the, not the YouTube. I'm the deep dive guy. Like I look at this stuff and evaluate it. I research. I'd prefer to research factual documents rather than talk with people. Right? Just largely, unless it's the person writing the factual document. However, coincident of whatever event is in your head, you still need conclusive proof, right? And so, it's up for you to prove this, and not for me to have to disprove your theory. So if you made some type of a substantial claim, you need to provide substantial evidence. Once again. Extraordinary evidence. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Always go with the simplest. The simplest explanation is the one to be preferred. And if you made a claim, then you need to provide proof of it. And something that I keep mentioning regularly in this is that there's no ascension until you've finished your contract. There's nothing with the affairs of human that are automatic except a slumber coming with the veil of might. Sloth, degradation, devolution, degeneration is automatic. That's what's automatic for humans. Right? Growth, spiritual and emotional growth is hard won for a human, let alone a bunch of them. And it takes continuous, conscious, constant effort, as always, to keep it in order, or to keep it in order to keep it. Most of the posts talking about manipulation are themselves manipulation. Simply showing 1/4 of the data and then coming up with all sorts of fanciful explanations of why and wherefore is fuckery, to put it bluntly. It's not a better word to explain. Beware of the con job and everything, right? Where are you being, manipulated? And, where is the rhetoric tripping you up? Right? These are important things to understand and to beware of, right? What is behind the language and why and wherefore, right? Leaving out 3/4 of the necessary data when making these prognostications is grift and swindle. I like that phrase, grift and swindle. And you should read these posts, these kind of posts, at your own peril. Just consider them, and that's one of the reasons why I'm still here in this form. There's not much else that I have going on that I need to be here for. It's to help you guys, the 10 precious viewers of you, who need to know this. When we talk about the data anomalies, and there's going to be the 10 of you who are here, and then 1 or 2 of you who are new and who are going to, really have some things to consider in what I've said, and the why and the wherefore of what they're doing and presenting, and all of this stuff, If I didn't need to be here, I wouldn't be doing this, and I'm here doing this for as long as I'm needed, right? And at the point that I've said everything I need to, that's when I'll be done here. So, there's more work to do, and this is one of those videos. I've done videos on this before, right? The anomaly, right? But this one is a longer one. It's over 2 hours between this and the other one. It's over 2 hours. And I wanted to, explore this. The videos I do as a point of departure, right? and we talk about this. We have a lot of discussion in the chat, right? So as whatever topics come up in the video, we have a discussion on this in the chat, and there's a lot of good dialogue that happens in the chat. So again, this is why I do these. This is why I play the music. I have this platform that I can use, and so a lot of my videos are done so I can do a premiere. They're made so they're long videos, so I can do a premiere so that everyone can kind of get in, and then some people leave later on, and then, whatever. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Enough of that. All right, let's play some music, and I'm going to play a few musics on this and, exit after a few songs. So, just let you know. It's Sunday, like almost 9 o'clock. I got to work at the bar in a little bit. I'm going to, kind of just chill, and then I'm going to head over there in a few hours. And so, just on that cheery note, so I'm not going to post this tonight, but probably tomorrow, I think. Tomorrow's Monday. So, a little later in the night. Definitely later in the night. For those of you on the West Coast and elsewhere. So, on that cheery note, not blah, blah, blah. Onward and upward.
I just can't wait to get back to you, back to you. It's gonna tear us
God, I look like a wreck. So this song is going to be playing for another minute plus, and then I'm just going to shut it off after that. So thank y'all for being here. I appreciate that. I love the support. Bradley, Jacqueline, Pam, Trish, I'm not feeling well. I haven't been doing much. So I give you guys my love, in the way that I can, that I'm able to, as I'm able, and I just wanted to, give you my love and my support, So on that cheery note, I will talk to you soon. Well, I will put this out soon, and we'll talk. Namas.